This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am joined today, all the way from the Barossa, by winemaker and head of sustainability at Yalumba, Louisa Rose, and also closer to home in Toronto, Elisabeth Muir. How are you both doing today?
I'm doing great, Jamie. Thank you very much.
Doing fantastically. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm sorry it took us a little while to get this coordinated, but I'm glad we're all here now. I opened the 2018 signature Cabernet Sauvignon Shiraz Barossa last night, and I had forgotten how fantastic a wine that was. We shall get around to tasting that in a moment. But first, Louisa, let's hear a little bit from you about your history with Yalumba and I guess the history of Yalumba itself, because you have been celebrating at Yalumba a very important anniversary over the last week, I guess.
Yes, thanks, Jamie. Well, it's actually really been almost a year now we've been celebrating. So,
of course, yeah.
Yalumba and Yalumba was established by Samuel Smith, who came out from Dorset 175 years ago, and his direct descendants, fifth and sixth generation of his family, still live on the property and run Yalumba. And it's been an incredible sort of celebration of family and of Yalumba this year for marking the 175th year. Yeah. I've been a part of the business as a winemaker since I started for my first vintage in 1992. As a very young winemaker coming straight out of training. It was the first job that I had, and I'm still here. Over 30 years later, and it's been an incredible time, both in the wine industry in Australia, around the world, but also working here for a family business.
Fantastic.
So, we often think about Australian wine. I think in Australia we understand that we have this very, very long history. As going back 175 years for this family, Barossa 180 years, and some of the oldest vines of Shiraz and Grenache and some other varieties as well, and Cabernet, growing anywhere in the world, because we're in what I like to describe as a perfect grape country in the Barossa in South Australia. We're dry, we have beautiful warm summers with low humidity and rain in winter and spring when the vines really need it. And that means that the vines grow very healthily. And then because of our distance and because of a lot of work in terms of quarantine, we've also been protected against a lot of the pests and diseases that have devastated other wine regions over the decades. So we've never had phylloxera here. We don't have Zayella or Pierce's disease, and we're perfectly sort of tucked away on the other side of the world from a lot of our drinkers.
In many ways, I see Yalumba as being a very, very traditional Barossa house, but at the same time, I'm curious as to the evolution that you have seen at Yalumba since you came on board in 1992.
Yeah. So when I often talk about the business and about the family as having this amazing tradition, but not being old-fashioned. And I think when you do call out numbers like 175 years. It's easy to sort of think, well, it must be all about tradition. But in fact, what happens here is because people come here with so much tenure, and we'll talk about that a bit when we talk about the signature wine. But people come here. 30 years sounds like an awful long time to work for a place. But I'm absolutely not the only person here. I work with people that have been here, 21, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 years. Working here, as well, of course, as a family of people. And what that means is that you get this incredible transfer of knowledge that almost crosses a generation. And so the people that work here, we understand the importance of what's learnt from the people before us, but we absolutely take it and use it to make sure that we're making wines to sell, to our global markets that are absolutely relevant and maybe timeless, but absolutely relevant for modern people, for modern drinkers, for modern cuisines and for modern occasions. And I think, we've talked about this year, our tagline has been 175 years of looking forward. And that's absolutely what this business does. And Robert Hill-Smith, who's been the fifth generation, and he's the person that I've worked alongside of for all my tenure here, and now as well as Robert, his two daughters, Jessica and Lucy, are both back in the business, and it's amazing to be working with them as well. Lucy often says when she introduces me these days that she remembers she's known me since she was 3, which is true. Sometimes make the 30 years go fairly quickly, but one of the beautiful things about having seen Robert take this business, which maybe when he picked it up was more of a sort of an old-fashioned sort of domestic focused business, but he's turned Yalumba into a business which has an absolute international focus. It sells to 52 countries around the world, and in many ways I think is one of the most innovative wineries in Australia. He's encouraged the development of what was almost an extinct variety in the 1970s in Viognier, and made it part of the fabric of our premium portfolio of wines. Yalumba is known now for Viognier around the world. We're leaders in Australia in many areas, and something like most of our wines these days made just with the yeast that come out of our vineyard. So but backing up that use of wild yeast is a huge amount of work in terms of biodiversity in vineyards, about understanding the microbiology from a scientific point of view about what's going on. So there's a lot of details that sort of sit in and give us confidence to make wines in a less intervention like way. That wasn't very good English, but so we're sometimes our stories are simple and very natural, but behind that is so much knowledge and so much understanding of what we're doing that gives us confidence to be able to trust nature and to know when things are going right, and on the odd occasion when things go wrong, to be able to do something and just tweak it, because we can identify it happening really quickly.
Indeed. Elisabeth, I'd like to ask you, where do you feel Yalumba is positioned as a brand in the Canadian market right now?
I like to think that we are recognized as one of the premium mid-sized houses in the Australian category. And I feel that when I'm out working in the trade, buyers understand, first of all, that Viognier piece that Louisa was referring to, because that is our highest distribution will tend to be with, for example, our Y series Viognier in most markets. But they also see us, and this is very gratifying, as beyond just that entry level. So people know the signature. We have collectors who collect each vintage of the signature. Louisa was signing bottles when she was in Edmonton a few weeks ago.
Nice.
And I feel that buyers, both at retail and on-premise, have a sense of where we fit within that sort of long-ranging Australian history, which is very gratifying.
I can remember when I was back in the working as a sommelier, which was 15 or so years ago, and traveling around Australia, there seemed to be a slight disconnect between many of the houses there and how they could get their premium wines into white tablecloth restaurants. Does that challenge still exist today?
It does. It does. The world of wine is forever ever growing and ever becoming more complex and more more exciting. There are a lot of other countries in many ways, I think, probably inspired perhaps by the success of Australian wine in the 90s around the world.
Yes,
and there's no secrets in this world, so you learn from each other, and so a lot of South American countries, South Africa, for example, in various places around the world are doing some great stuff. So not only do we have the old world of Europe to muscle in our place and to fit in with that, but now there's all these other amazing countries around the world, many of which have got a long wine growing history as well. So it's a complex, it's a big market, and it's always we need to be consistently on that. And we need to make sure, all of us that, we're talking to the next generation of sommeliers and the wine trade that come through, and, and reaching out to consumers, right around the world, and wine drinkers, and showing them where there's a place for Australian wine. And in our case, where there's a place for Yalumba wine in maybe their day-to-day lives, but absolutely on the white tablecloths. That's just an ongoing journey.
Right, right. Now, speaking of which, let's turn our attention towards the 2018 signature.